Hello, good evening, and welcome to the latest Care Fertility Instagram. My name is Professor Charles Kingsland. I'm the Group Director of Care Fertility, and I'm broadcasting to you tonight from Care Fertility in Liverpool on the banks of the River Mersey. And that's probably the only clinic that is in the middle of a World Heritage Site and where there's an ocean-going liner docked in our car park. So that's it's a lovely view. It's nice to see the liners coming back to Liverpool to start the holiday season. Although COVID is still with us, I think hopefully cautiously we might start getting away in the late summer. I'm sure we will. Anyway, tonight I'm going to answer any questions that come along, but I'm going to talk mainly about sperm, because often males are not regarded as key players in fertility. And when I started fertility in the 1980s, the fertility clinics were full of women. It was very rare for males to come along, even though 50% of all problems with fertility, difficulty conceiving, lie with the male. So I'm just gonna give you a bit of basic physiology, then I'll answer a few questions, and then if there are any more questions that come along, we'll try and build them in. So the difference between men and women, and I've said this many times before, so you'll have to forgive me if you've heard it before, is that women are egg warehouses. All your eggs are in your ovaries on the day you're born, and you do not have the ability to make eggs. They are held in an immature form, and then once you reach the age of 11, 12 or 13, you start maturing them and releasing them. And depending on how many you've got, that dictates how many you'll have and how many you release. Obviously, things can change, and you might get nasty diseases that affect your ovaries, or you might smoke, or you might be overweight, and they can have a detrimental effect on your eggs. But if you are 35 years old, you can absolutely guarantee that your eggs are 35 years old. And that is why as you age, the eggs become less fertile. So by the time you're 42, 43, your eggs are, the majority of your viable eggs have probably been ovulated or gone. So women lose their ability to reproduce well before the menopause. Now, men, on the other hand, are sperm factories. We have all the ingredients in our bodies to make sperm. Some days we're good at it, some days we're bad at it, but it usually takes us about 6 weeks to make a sperm, and then we store them for a little bit amount of time, we ejaculate them out, and then we make some more. And so theoretically, we can reproduce up until the day we die. But as we get older, our sperm gets older with us. It gets a little bit more defective, but it's still viable. And so theoretically, you can reproduce right up until you're an old man, if you feel like that. And Charlie Chaplin, that famous comedian and silent film star, he had his last child, or he fathered his last child when he was 85 years old. Actually beggars belief, doesn't it? I mean, usually they didn't have Sky or television in those days, I don't suppose. But we lose our fertility because we just lose interest in putting sperm where it needs to go. It doesn't mean to say the viability of the sperm has gone, but our ability to release sperm goes down. And of course, there are things that can affect our sperm count. Again, diseases, smoking, being overweight, having a poor diet. These can all negatively impact on your sperm. The difference, one of the big factors about sperm is that whereas eggs like to be kept warm, that's why your ovaries are inside your body, sperm like to be kept in the cool, and that's why testicles are outside the body. So the best temperature to produce your sperm is around about 35 degrees. So that's 2 degrees below your core temperature. So if you do anything that warms your testicles up, then that has an effect on lowering your sperm count. So it's always a good idea, if you're trying to conceive, is to keep your testicles nice and cool. And one of the old-fashioned contraceptive devices was to actually have lots of hot baths to keep your testicles warm, and that reduces the motility of sperm. Now, so and another thing that really affects sperm is nowadays that I see a lot is protein supplements. So we have this strange idea that if we go to the gym and we work out and we're ultra fit, that's going to be good for our sperm. Well, it's not. When your testosterone levels go up, then your sperm levels go down. Actually, I know it sounds a bit strange, but testosterone is the male hormone. But that gives us the ability to be male, and that gives us the ability to deliver sperm. But it doesn't give us the ability to make sperm. We need a balance between testosterone levels and spermatogenesis. And when the testosterone goes up, your sperm count goes down. So it's important that you do not take exogenous protein shakes or testosterone levels, if you're trying to get fertile. The problem with taking high levels of testosterone or testosterone derivatives that cannot find their way into the poorer quality shakes is that it can lower your sperm count, and that takes a long time to come back. It's reversible, but normally if you've been taking protein supplements, you've got to look at about 9 months to get your sperm back to normal levels, if at all. So just quickly going to what sperm have to do. So for a sperm to swim from intercourse from the vagina to the egg, which is the equivalent of a man swimming from outside there, from the pier head on the River Mersey to the Statue of Liberty in New York. That's 3,000 miles. Sperm have to swim a long way, and they have to swim very quickly. And if they were human sized, they'd be swimming at 600 miles an hour. But they still have to be very, very active. And that's the basis that we look when we're doing a sperm count. Okay, we look at 3 things when we want to measure sperm. We can't prove the fertility of sperm. The only way you can prove that sperm works is to do a DNA test on the baby that has been fathered, and then that proves unequivocally that the sperm that was produced and used is the one that turned into the baby. All we can do other than that is to give ourselves an idea as to whether that sperm is fertile. And the way to test that is a semen analysis. So we ask the male to produce, to go for 5 days without intercourse, so empty the tanks, and then 5 days later come along to the clinic and produce a sample. And we look at that sample and we look at 3 things. We look at the number, how many sperm there are per mil. We look at whether they are motile, so we look at the proportion that are motile, how many are doing front crawl, how many are doing breaststroke, how many are doing doggy paddle, which way they are swimming, because we want them to be swimming front crawl towards the New Brighton Lighthouse. We don't want them to be doing backstroke towards the Runcorn Bridge. So we want to know what proportion are motile, and then we want to know how many are normal. How many sperm look normal? And here's the quirky thing. 95% of the sperm that we produce are abnormal. They look abnormal, and that is normal. We produce loads of abnormal sperm. But we of the ejaculate, we want at least 20 million sperm for every mil of semen. Okay, we want 20 million for every mil. It doesn't matter of the count. We want the concentration, the number of sperm that are swimming around within a milliliter of the semen, and 20 million is about right. Now, of those sperm, we want about 30% to be doing front crawl, and then we want at least 5% to be normal. And that constitutes what we reckon is a fertile sperm count. That is as good as it gets. Now, what I normally do to couples who come to see us in Liverpool, if they like football, I will tell them what the equivalent of their sperm count is in terms of football teams. Whether it's a Liverpool, whether it's an Everton, whether it's a Manchester City or a Crystal Palace or a Fulham or a Norwich City. And that gives you some idea as to the fertility of the sperm. But some people have great sperm, some people have moderate sperm, some will have poor sperm. But what you also have to remember is that we don't work in isolation, us males. We all have different fertilities. So if you've got a highly fertile male and a highly fertile female, they'll click like that. And they're the sort of boring people that you meet at parties and say, oh, I only have to look at David and I seem to get pregnant. Well, even though, David might not be a husband, but they will click very quickly. Then you've got those with a good high male count and a poor female count, so they're average, and they'll take 6 to 9 months. And then you've got poor male count, high female count, and they'll probably take 6 to 9 months. And then you might have a couple who have got a poor male count and a poor female count, poor female egg count, and they may take forever. And they're the sort of people who will say, well, we never thought we'd ever get pregnant, and then after 5 years of trying, along came Billy. But we work in pairs. But we then have to decide at what point, after regular timed sexual intercourse, might there be a problem. And if you're under 35 and you've been trying for 12 to 18 months, that's the time when you go and seek help to either your general practitioner or your local fertility clinic to think there might be a problem. There might not, but that's the time. Now, if you're 38, 39, so age is not on your side, then you probably want to go a bit earlier. Or indeed, if you're just anxious and you just want to find out, then do a sperm test and do the important test that you need to do, which will dictate which things we need to look at. They might all be normal, but it's nice to know. But there are only 3 tests you need to know. 3 important tests. Number 1, have I got eggs in my ovaries? Number 2, are all my pelvic organs in the right place and healthy? In other words, can I grow a baby? And number 3, do the sperm that are ejaculated have the ability to swim up to my egg? And then on the basis of those tests, we can decide which diagnosis you're in. It might be male factor, it might be unexplained, it might be that you're just not ovulating, or it might be that there's a damage to your pelvic organs. But those 3 tests will discover 98% of the problems, and then we're left with the little tiny minutiae that many of my patients seem to get bogged down with, that to most people are of little relevance. So, what can you do to maximize your sperm test, your sperm count? Number 1, keep your testicles cool. If you treat them, you treat sperm like your little pets, then what do? You feed them well, you keep them well aired, you make sure that you clean out the pipes regularly, so you it's a good idea if you're trying for a baby to ejaculate regularly, so you don't build up what we call nasty oxidative species within the pipes that can have a negative effect on the sperm. So it's a good idea to clean the pipes out, feed them well, keep them nice and cool. So let me just answer a few questions that have come through. Hello. We're about to start our 4th ICSI round at Woking. Now, that's a good clinic. Woking, Care Woking is a good clinic. So, not that any of them are poor, they're all good, but Woking, so that's fine. Now, ICSI is where with IVF, where the sperm count might be very low. So we don't have so with IVF, basically what you do is you take the eggs out and then you put 100,000 sperm together with the eggs. You inseminate the eggs. So you just put the eggs and the sperm together, then you close the lid of the incubator and leave them to get on with it. And hopefully within 12, 24 hours, one single sperm has swum into the egg and it's fertilized it. Sometimes, however, if the sperm count is so low that we haven't got the confidence, notwithstanding the fact that the sperm have not been able to swim across the Atlantic Ocean, and we may not have the confidence that those 100,000 sperm are going to penetrate the egg, or one is going to penetrate the egg. So what we do is we take one single good-looking sperm, just one, and we inject it into the egg. Intracytoplasmic sperm injection. And I've seen men in our clinic who have conceived successfully with IVF, with ICSI, when they've had 5 sperm. Not 5,000 or 5 million or 50 million, but 5. So ICSI is a great treatment for male factor infertility. So this couple are undergoing their 4th ICSI round at Woking. We have a poor sperm quality and a low count. Also, just done the Myoxis test, and he has reductive stress. So have now cut down on supplements. We have been offered Sperm Flow and Zymot filter for this round. Should this help to overcome these issues? Is there anything else you would recommend? Well, actually, you've made a very good point here. One of the tests that we do nowadays, over and above the standard semen analysis, is a Myoxis. And this not only measures the quantity of sperm, whether they're swimming or not, and whether they're normal or not, it actually measures the amount of stress they're undergoing. Because within the semen, there's little molecules which predict the level of stress the sperm has. And that's actually quite important, because we don't want highly stressed sperm. But similarly, we don't want no stress for the sperm. It's nice to have a little bit of stress. Now, the best stress reliever that we know of for sperm is vitamin E. And we used to routinely say to couples who are trying for a baby, to the male, if you want to do something, take vitamin E. Well, we now know that sperm need a bit of stress, because obviously if you're going to swim across the Atlantic, you need some stress. You don't need to just be relaxed and, hey man, this is great, I'm just enjoying myself in the waves here. You need to be on your game, but you don't need too much stress. It's like any sport. So vitamin E gets rid of a lot of that stress. Now, it can have a negative effect on the sperm. So what we now do increasingly routinely is measure the levels of stress. And we actually can tell you not when to take vitamin E, but when not to take vitamin E. Because that can have a negative effect, because it can wipe out all the stress, and then you've got and then you've swung the other way, and the sperm may just not have the necessary level of stress that they need. So we have been offered Sperm Flow and Zymot for this round. Now, Zymot, we're going to hear about that next week. Zymot is a new test, and it's actually a new treatment, and actually I think it's really good. But I'll tell you why I think it's really good and why you should adopt new tests or think of new tests with caution. So when we're preparing a sperm for IVF, what we do is we spin it. We take the sample, the scientists, the embryologists do lots of special things with it, and then spin it in a centrifuge. And then all the best sperm swim to the bottom, and then you get the best sperm out. But as you can imagine, if you've been spun around a few thousand times at 1,000 revolutions per second or 1,000 revolutions per minute, you're going to feel a bit dizzy and it's a bit brutal. So what Zymot does, instead of spinning the sperm around and picking the best ones, what it does, you put the sperm in the Zymot machine and the sperm swim through a little obstacle course. And at the end of the obstacle course, you've got the best sperm and you pick them out. And they're not dizzy and they're not being spun around. Now, that to me makes a lot of sense. However, whenever a doctor advises you about new tests, you've got to say, is this unequivocally going to do me any good? Because a lot of tests have not been validated. Now, they may not be, as long as they're not harmful, but they may not be of any particular benefit. So when you say to your doctor, is this going to be of any benefit to me? For example, if I say to you, you must take your folic acid, you then say, well, is there of any benefit? I can lead you to the library and demonstrate to you unequivocally that taking folic acid will give you a better chance of having a healthy baby than if you don't take folic acid. Now, if you were to say to me, should I be taking avocados? Should I be eating avocados? Well, that's a lecture in itself. There's no evidence. It sounds like a good idea, but not that, it's probably of relatively no benefit. However, if you take, it's not harmful, and if you take avocados, then you're probably cognizant of your diet, and therefore you've probably got a good diet, and that is good for you. But the idea of taking, takeaway chips, for example, is good for you. That just is mind-boggling where that came from. I don't know whose idea it was that eating a particular takeaway chip is going to improve your fertility. So Zymot, as it's promising. There's a lot of science to say it's good. Sounds like a good idea to me. It's not harmful, but it's not unequivocally evidence-based. So therefore, you have to think of the risk and the benefits and the cost and whether it's going to be a benefit for you. So Zymot is something that we'll be talking about next week. I think it's good. You've got to think about whether you can justify the cost. It's not harmful, but it's not unequivocally proven. Okay. With a low count and paying privately, can I put more than one embryo back? Well, the answer to that is no, because we all, when we've been trying for a baby for years and years, the idea of putting two embryos back and getting twins is great. Now, years ago, we used to put more embryos back, more than one embryo back, because we didn't have the necessary technology to freeze them. Nowadays, we can freeze embryos very successfully and thaw them out. And in fact, 80% of embryos that are created in the United States are now frozen. And we have frozen clinics where we do exclusively frozen, because we believe that if you freeze the embryos, then you can then prepare the lining of the womb much better later on. So you thaw the embryo out and put it into the best endometrium that you're going to get, as opposed to putting a fresh one back where the endometrium might be under the influence of the hormones that you've used to stimulate your ovaries. I'm not saying that's not the best way, but it's certainly, I think the future is frozen. So the frozen technology gives you every bit and probably even better success rates than fresh ones. But if you put two embryos back, you've got a better chance of getting pregnant than if you put one embryo back. But you do not have a better chance of having a baby, because the risk of twins is miscarriage. You are 5 times more likely to miscarry twins than you are a singleton. And we always see the pretty healthy twin babies that have been pushed around Aldi or Asda following, fertility treatment. But you don't see the ill, the miscarried, or the dying ones that are still in the hospital and haven't made it outside the hospital. So the mantra is have as many embryos put back as you want, but one at a time. Sometimes, for medical reasons, it's probably more advisable to have 2 embryos, but generally speaking, 1 embryo at a time. We've been told that my husband's semen analysis is acceptable. What does this mean? Well, that's a bit brutal, isn't it? Acceptable. If it were me, I would say it's fine, it's good, it's average. We all want to be average. I like, it's nice to be average. You don't want to be top of the class, you don't want to be bottom of the class, but you want to be average. So I would say, we've been told my husband's semen analysis is acceptable. Well, that's Everton. It's just, it's acceptable. It's good enough. You're not going to get relegated, but you're not going to get it into Europe. And that's fine. That's where most people are. So don't worry about that. My husband and I will be starting our first round of ICSI at the end of July. He's 36 and I'm 29. He has his semen analysis done with care last month. The results mention 100% abnormal forms with no acrosomes, but not classic aglobulous zoospermia, not suitable for ICSI unless eggs are activated. So that could be an issue, and you need another consultation to discuss that and talk it through. There may be some therapies that may be appropriate, but it would be nice to know that what has happened in your husband's history that has led to him producing these abnormal sperm, because you want some to be normal. So the questions we've got to ask are, can we make them normal? Are there 1 or 2 sperm? Bear in mind that you only need 1 that may be normal, or are they all abnormal? And if they're all abnormal, what we're going to do about it? And that's an important question. And so you need to speak to your consultant or your advanced nurse practitioner in the clinic to say, what does this mean for us? What are the implications? And what do we do next? How much does age affect sperm? Do we use frozen sperm from 3 years ago or go fresh next? With sperm, fresh is always best, not unless you're 85. But age does affect sperm. Sperm quality goes down. But over 3 years, not significantly. There's lots more questions coming through, but I think we are out of time. So that's I hope that's covered a few things that might be bothering you about sperm. As I said, next week Ali Campbell and I are doing a webinar on sperm, and she's the boss scientist, so she'll be able to answer all those sciencey questions. If you have any other questions that you want answering, Chloe on the other line is happy to take them, and then we can get back to you with emails if possible. If you are thinking or you're concerned about some aspects of your fertility, don't hesitate to contact us. We've got clinics. We've got 21 clinics all over the country. You can always phone up our central office, our patient inquiry team, expertly led by Shah Short and Lauren in Manchester. And we're only too happy. And even if there's nothing wrong, if you're worried and you're concerned, then just give us a ring. And that might be all you need. So good luck. That's taken us to, gosh, doesn't time fly? So that's taken us to 7 o'clock. As I say, Chloe's on the emails, and we'll see you again next week. Send your questions in and we'll try and answer as many as possible. So good night, everybody. I'll see you next week. Bye.